turned state's evidence in the National Social Security Institute case and will return 400 million in an agreement with the federal police. Businessman Mauricio Camisotti's agreement is under review by the Attorney General's office before being approved by the Supreme Federal Court. He is accused of acting as the financial operator of the Social Security embezzlement scheme. Mauricio Camisotti is already in prison. In fact, the other day someone asked me, I do read your comments, you know? They asked me, Andre, who is Mauricio Camisotti? Mauricio Camisotti has been in prison since last year, just like the bald guy from INSS. He was one of the people who operated within the National Social Security Institute together with the Ministry of Social Security, whose minister at the time was, at the time of Bolsonaro's government, Onyx Lorenzoni, who was not elected governor of Rio Grande do Sul in 2022, and he stayed there managing, setting up the whole scheme for the INSS fraud for the improper deductions from retirees and pensioners, where he even got authorization from the Bolsonaro government to carry all of this out. Both he and the bald guy from INSS, and he, Mauricio Camisotti, decided to turn state's evidence. He has already submitted his cooperation agreement. His cooperation agreement was sent in this case to Andre Mendonça, and Andre Mendonça has now notified the Prosecutor General to find out what the Prosecutor General's opinion is. Will he accept Mauricio Camisotti's cooperation agreement or not? His cooperation statement is solid. He really lays out how the crime worked. Because as I always tell you, my dear, and I'll explain it to you, a plea deal by itself doesn't have any legal effect. Because when someone enters a plea deal, what are they looking for? Judicial pardon, or at least a reduction of their sentence. But they have to show how the crime worked so that the police can trace it back to its origin and find the evidence. Evidence. Anyone can just talk for the sake of talking. Talk. He has to show how the crime worked so that the federal police can find the evidence for what he claims. If he doesn't do that, his plea bargain is worthless. So now we have to wait to find out what the Prosecutor General's position is, which is very important. Saying whether or not they accept Mauricio Camisotti's plea bargain, who is already in prison. And in this plea bargain process, he said he will return 400 million reais that he stole from retirees and pensioners. And there's no doubt that in his plea bargain, there must be political figures involved, including from the Bolsonaro government. I believe they arranged, benefited, and facilitated access for these people to steal from retirees and pensioners, especially during the Bolsonaro government. That's the situation. More news could emerge at any time, just like Daniel Vorcaro's plea bargain. They've already said that in Daniel Vorcaro's plea deal, he'll start naming names at the beginning of next month, where he will have to return at least 50 billion reais. In addition to spelling out how the scheme worked, Daniel Vorcaro will have to return at least 50 billion reais that he stole from the entire Banco master fraud. Notably in relation to, for example, BRB. BRB is bankrupt. It's a public bank. It's as if Caixa Econômica Federal went bankrupt. But of course, BRB is linked to the federal district. But it's a public bank. And there, the Ibanez Rocha government tried to sell public areas, tried to do a lot of things to cover up the hole caused by theft inside BRB today, as a result of the purchase of junk shares from Banco Master. And the court prohibited it. The court prohibited any measures to cover up this hole caused by the theft caused by Ibanez Rocha's government. What is the consequence, Andrea? Most likely BRB will go bankrupt. Then comes Celina Leão. Celina Leão is the vice governor of the federal district together with Ibanez Rocha. Ibanez Rocha stepped down from office because he said he is running for the Senate. So he stepped down and left the office of governor of the federal district. Then his vice, Celina, took over. Then Celina went and blamed Lula. Oh no, Andrea Gonçalves. Oh no, please, help me, done. She blamed Lula and the federal government for not wanting to help BRB. But what do you mean? You, when it was time to take 12 billion in public money from BRB and shove it up the ass of that devil Daniel Volcaro from the Banco master fraud, you didn't ask Lula for authorization. Did you ask? No, you didn't. Now you want the Lula government to cover the shortfall to save BRB? Yeah, and it's Lula's fault. These people are real scumbags, you know? You have to be a real scumbag to not even have the guts to own up to your own mistakes. Because Selena should have said, look, they really did make a mistake. I have nothing to do with it. I didn't do anything, but it was a mistake. She shouldn't have done that. She claimed it was Lula's fault since Lula won't save BRB. Oh, Selena, go to work or else go get a job. Hey, 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 there are people who need to go look for work. Put it up there, my dears. While Ibanez Rocha runs away, Selena needs to work. Go find some work, Selena. Look at the situation here, another situation. Let's keep moving forward because there are people coming behind us. Alessandro Vieira asks the Attorney General's office to close the case filed by Gilmar Mendez. The guy's worried, isn't he? Senator Alessandro Vieira doesn't even have a case yet. Pay attention. There's no case yet. There's a case. Do you remember that Senator Alessandro Vieira took over the Parliamentary Inquiry Commission on Organized Crime in the Federal Senate and went ahead and indicted Alexandre de Moraes, Gilmar Mendez, Diaz Toffoli, and the Attorney General of the Republic for an impeachable offense? Impeachable offense, crime. In short, it's not a crime. Calm down. It's a political proceeding. When a public official, a civil servant, violates, especially a high-ranking public official, if not, it's administrative misconduct. If a lower-ranking official is involved, it's administrative misconduct. For higher-ranking ones, it's called an impeachable offense, which, to repeat, isn't a crime and isn't in the penal code. An indictment doesn't even apply here. And he recommended charges against 3 Supreme Court justices and the prosecutor general. Formal charges don't even apply. It's a political issue. It's when a political or public agent violates ethics or decorum. Principle of integrity in public administration. Then they can be held accountable for an impeachable offense. And what's the consequence? Prison, jail, Andre? No. That's why formal charges don't apply. And he recommended charges. Oh my God. So what is applicable then, Andre? Then what applies is the opening of a political impeachment process to remove that person from office, you know? It's a political issue, not a criminal one. It's political. So what Alessandro Vieira, the senator, did in the Organized Crime Committee, he recommended charges against all 4. He didn't recommend charges against any criminals. He didn't recommend charges against anyone for a crime. He didn't recommend charges against anyone in organized crime for a crime. Huh, Andrea? So what happens then? When the CPI was created, it had a clear and specific purpose, which was to investigate agents involved in organized crime who may have committed crimes. He completely deviated from the purpose of the CPI. And he did something that he shouldn't have done within the CPI. Given that Gilmar Mendez and other justices understood that Senator Alessandro Vieira committed an abuse of authority. And that's a crime. Yes, it has a light sentence, right, Andrea? Yes, it's detention, something minor. But the effects of a conviction for abuse of authority are serious. Like reimbursement to the Treasury, compensation for moral damages, loss of position, and ineligibility. Are you getting the point? That's right. There are 2 types of abuse of power in Brazil. The category is abuse of power, and the types are improper purpose and excess of power. Excess of power is when the public official acts beyond their authority, exceeding their power. And he wasn't allowed to do what he did. That's not the case with Alessandro Vieira. He is acting for an improper purpose. What does that mean, Andrea Gonçalves? He could even do what he did. Why? Because he is a senator, the inquiry issue falls under his responsibilities within the parliamentary commission. So he could even do what he did. It's within the scope of the power he has. But the issue is the purpose, Aji. What he was trying to achieve, it's against the law. His purpose was diverted. Instead of wanting to catch criminals and criminal organizations, as was the purpose of the parliamentary inquiry, he turned it into a political matter of an impeachable offense, which is a political issue without an actual crime being established, and indicted someone who shouldn't have been indicted. Because I repeat, it's not a crime, it's a political issue. An impeachable offense is a political matter. So he could even do what he did, but his intention is tainted. And what does that lead to? Abuse of authority, which has as a consequence, one of several consequences, the loss of office and ineligibility. Then Gilmar Mendez went and called on the prosecutor general. He asked, Attorney General, are you going to act? And look, what I'm telling you, this lesson I just gave you, Gilmar Mendez put it all down on paper with all the acts and facts and the legal constitutional framework. Oh. He sent it to the Attorney General. The Attorney General hasn't commented yet. Alessandro Vieira, before any statement from the Attorney General, Alessandro Vieira, desperate, already went and submitted a request asking the Attorney General not to accept it, not to do anything. And then Alessandro, it's not his place to do that at all. No, Andre, no. He will only be able to do that if the Attorney General accepts and files charges against Alessandro Vieira for abuse of power. Then Alessandro Vieira will have his deadline for a preliminary defense and so on. Then there will be the acceptance of the charges, the defendant's interrogation and so on, and the whole situation. It's just that he's desperate. Why, Andre? Because if the Attorney General, and I've already told you this here, if the Attorney General accepts Gilmar Mendez's complaint, he will file charges against Alessandro Vieira. And Alessandro Vieira will lose his position and be considered ineligible. What is the material evidence against him for the crime of abuse of authority? It's already the report he wrote himself, over 200 pages long, in which he distorts the purpose of the Parliamentary Inquiry Committee itself. It became a political and electoral issue where he played to the audience to see if he could get votes from the crowd, besides fueling the far right with coup-mongering, because that's what this is. I'm not saying here that a Supreme Court justice or the Attorney General is immune to any state reprimand if they happen to commit a crime. I'm not saying that. But there is a right way, the right tools. And when it comes to formally naming a suspect, that's done by investigators and the federal police. And when it comes to filing charges against a Supreme Court justice, it's the Attorney General's office that does it. Charges against an Attorney General are also filed by the Attorney General's office itself. But then it gets hard, Andre. So amend the Constitution. Thank you. Because the deputies and senators made these rules themselves. Let's wait and see what happens, right? I've said this before and we'll say it again. Alessandro Vieira will only avoid having his seat revoked and being declared ineligible, that is, losing his position and becoming ineligible, if the president of the Senate, Davi Alcolumbre, goes to the federal Supreme Court and begs, for the love of God, forgive him. I guarantee he won't pull a stunt like that again. And even then, otherwise he will be. I guarantee it, Andre? Yes. Oh my. Oh, Jesus, later, all these questions, everything you're doing now. Okay, guys? I'll answer at the end of the live stream. Don't worry, don't worry. Today I'm on a roll. Today is Friday, and I'm not too worried about much because otherwise we go crazy and lose our minds. Mercy, Jesus. Put it there. The slackers still oppose ending the 6 days on, 1 day off work schedule. Meanwhile, they work a 3-on-4 schedule. There are a lot of benefits, including these little travel perks. Everything's paid for. Going to visit a fugitive from Brazilian justice, a coup plotter. This is a mockery. It's a slap in the face of Brazilian society. Whoa, whoa. Good. Now I have to highlight this week's big story. Alexandre de Moraes orders the federal police to investigate whether Flavio Bolsonaro committed a crime against the honor of the President of the Republic. Flavio Bolsonaro made a post linking Lula to drug trafficking and organized crime and linking Maduro to criminal organizations and so on and so forth. Flavio Bolsonaro posted this. Then the Minister of Justice filed a petition with the Supreme Federal Court so that there would be accountability for this possible crime. In cases involving crimes against the president's honor, prosecution can proceed only if the Minister of Justice files a formal complaint. And that's what happened. So faced with this situation, Alexandre de Moraes sent this request to the federal police to open a police investigation and investigate Flavio Bolsonaro. He committed a crime against the honor of the President of the Republic. That's what Alexandre de Moraes asked the federal police to investigate. And if he has committed it, the federal police will send a report to Alexandre de Moraes asking that Flavio Bolsonaro be formally named as a suspect. Crimes against honor are subject to private criminal prosecution. What does that mean, Andrea? If you are the offended one, if you felt offended, you are the one who has to go after it and file the lawsuit. Okay? Now, the crime against the honor of the President of the Republic is subject to public criminal prosecution. It is conditional on a formal complaint. This means that there is public interest. And under Brazilian law, if a politician is convicted in a public criminal case, they can become ineligible. That's the case. That's the case with Flavio Bolsonaro. And I even told you that it's also the case with Nicolas Ferreira. Nicolas Ferreira is also facing criminal proceedings before the Supreme Federal Court, which is already further along, for the crime of slander against the President of the Republic. If he is convicted, this case is with the first panel. If he is convicted, one of the consequences of this conviction is that the person becomes ineligible. And the same thing can happen to Flavio Bolsonaro. Obviously, I don't believe that things will move forward for this to happen this year. Why? Because then it will look like the Supreme Court is really trying to help Lula and not let Flavio run for president. And I don't think that's healthy for our democracy right now. I believe that Flavio should be defeated first at the electronic ballot box within the electoral system. Afterwards, when he gets beaten by Lula and loses the election this October, then yes, those actions, I believe, will move forward and have consequences. Afterwards, I don't believe it will happen now. And I repeat, I don't think it's healthy for democracy at this moment. Afterwards, I believe he could be convicted and be considered ineligible. And I even believe this applies to Nicolas Ferreira. Right, Andre? Yes. If that happens, Bolsonaro supporters will claim persecution and call it a dictatorship by the courts and so on. So just let it be. Nicolas Ferreira will very likely be re-elected as a federal deputy. Afterwards, he will face this lawsuit and will be considered ineligible. And that's where it will end. Why? Because he won't be able to run for the Senate in 2030. So that's more or less what will happen. I don't think it's certain. There are consequences for these situations now, but I do believe there will be later ones as well. Okay? So that's a very important highlight of this week. And another highlight of this week is the end of the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule. It was approved by the Constitution and Justice Committee. Ooh, actually, it was not approved. No. Wow, my hair is a mess. Jesus. oh my God, I'm going to have to fix this hair to spend my 5 rays. Today, it was the rapporteur Paulo Aziz from União Brazil who presented his report in favor of ending the 6-on, 1-off schedule at the Constitution and Justice Committee of the Chamber of Deputies. And it was supposed to have already been approved, so it could then go to the special committee and be approved in the plenary. So what happened? This is what happened. Lawmakers from PL and Novo, led notably by Bia Kicis. I was there, and Eduardo Bolsonaro is here too, as he also opposes ending the 6-on, 1-off schedule. Flavio too, okay, Andre? Hey guys. Right, Andre? Janone said that Flavio Bolsonaro made an official statement and is also against ending the 6-on, 1-off schedule. I'll show you in a bit. These federal deputies who will soon be asking for your vote, worker, and who work a 3-on, 4-off schedule and earn almost 50,000 raise a month, are against ending the 6-on, 1-off schedule for workers in Brazil. You have to work until exhaustion, as Federal Deputy Marcos Feliciano himself said. I showed you the video this week. He asked for more time to review it. He requested more time for everyone to review it. They said they need to study the process and the proposal more carefully. What's their strategy? To stall the process. They won't have the courage to vote against it because in October there will already be an election. And whoever votes against the proposed constitutional amendment to end the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule won't be re-elected. What does this proposed constitutional amendment say, Andrea? That you as a worker won't have to work 6 days to get 1 day off anymore. This proposed constitutional amendment says the following, that for every 5 days you work, you will have 2 days off without any reduction in salary. This is a way to value the worker, to value your social life. With your family, for you to rest, for you to study, for you to live your life, for you to enjoy being lazy. That's it. To do something besides work. Do you understand? Especially when it comes to protecting the family, so that you can have family time with your mother, with your father, with your grandfather, your children, with your wife. Anyway, your dog, your pet, whatever it is. That's what it's for. That's it. For every 5 days of work, you will have 2 days off without any reduction in salary. This is extremely important, extremely important, extremely important. So write it down now, the end of the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule right now. And these ones here, since they don't have the courage, and they won't have the courage to vote against it. Because actually IBGE did a survey. More than 70% of Brazil's population is in favor of ending the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule. So they lack the courage to vote against it. What's their strategy? Postpone, stall, drag it out, so that it doesn't move forward, because if it does, it'll reach the floor. Once it's on the floor, they won't be able to vote against it. So what are they doing? They're acting like defenders to keep the ball from reaching the penalty area, because if it gets to the area, it's a goal. If it gets to the floor, it's approved. They'll have to approve it. So they're doing all kinds of maneuvers to keep the process from moving forward, to keep the legislative process from moving forward. That's what they're doing. It's a shame. So the Bolsonaristas asked for more time to review it. So Hugo Mota is feeling pressured. Why? Because faced with all this stalling, what did Lula do? Lula submitted a bill on an urgent basis, which has priority in the legislative process, in which within 45 days at most, it has to be approved. Right, Andre? Yes. Then from that point on, Hugo Mota felt pressured. Either he moves this proposed constitutional amendment forward to get it approved. It will be approved if it goes to the floor. It has to move forward. Or necessarily, he will have to put it under urgent consideration. Lula's bill, which he introduced to apply pressure. So in this context, Hugo Mota said there's no need to worry, saying again that he's a good guy. Yeah, I know. You see, Hugo Mota, anyone who doesn't know you would buy that act. So what happened? He said that on the 22nd, it will be approved by the Constitution and Justice Committee. It must be approved by the Constitution and Justice Committee or it won't progress. Unless he makes it urgent. Then Hugo Mota can do that with the proposed constitutional amendment. If he makes it urgent, then the proposed constitutional amendment doesn't even need to go through the committees. But he's not going to do that. Why, Andre? Because he wants to raise his own political stock. And he wants to look like he's one of the main people responsible soon for the approval. But he's being pushed into it. He's being taken along. Otherwise, he would have dragged out the process too. Then after that, after being approved by the Constitution and Justice Committee, which he said will be on the 22nd, it goes to a special committee. In the special committee, they will analyze the merits of the matter. In the Constitution and Justice Committee, they are analyzing the constitutionality and admissibility of the process. The special committee analyzes constitutionality. Once approved there, it moves forward. Soon there will be a request for more time to review it there as well, Andre. I wouldn't doubt it. Then it will be time for Hugo Mata to show up like, I'm here. I'm going to make things move. I'm the guy. It's all just talk to fool people. If it were up to him, it would still be stuck. After approval by the special committee, it goes to the floor. Since it's a proposed amendment to the Constitution, it has to pass twice on the floor. They do it quickly when they want. They approve it the same way on the same day. They quickly approve it in both sessions with a 3/5 supermajority since it's a constitutional amendment. After approval, it goes to the Senate. In the Senate, it's faster because in the Chamber of Deputies, there are 513 deputies. Each one wants to stand out more than the other. So it's more work, especially the Bolsonarists and Novo members who are against it. There in the federal Senate, there are fewer of them. There are 81 senators. So the Bolsonarists who will probably ask for more time to review it with all that situation, but it doesn't go much further. No, it should be faster. For example, Chupetinha trying to get in the way, submitted an amendment saying that the Lula government has to create like a Bolsa Familia for business owners. Andrea? Oh, hey, Chupetinha. This Chupetinha never gets it right. He only messes up. No. But it's kind of like a Bolsa Familia. It's for the boss. Can you believe it? Does that make any sense? The upper class keeps criticizing Bolsa Familia, saying it's for lazy people and all that. Now, Nicolas Ferreira wants a Bolsa Familia for the bosses. Can you believe it? Andrea, but wouldn't that be good? No. Let me tell you something. The bill already includes compensation, which is the reduction of payroll taxes. Then that's fine. I'm not against it. Okay, no, it's fine. Reduce the payroll tax a little sobre a folha de pagamento to give some compensation. It's fine. But to create a Bolsa Familia, boss, the business elite, guys, nobody's gonna die, guys. There are businessmen here, Luciano Hang, saying it's going to be a catastrophe. There's going to be mass unemployment. It's going to be this and that. Luciano Hang. You said Brazil was going to turn into Venezuela. Luciano Hang, in 2025, you had 18 billion in profits from your companies. You said Brazil was going to go bankrupt, that Brazil was going to turn into Venezuela, and only you. You had 18 billion in profits just last year. And your workers, your employees, having one more day off each week, are you going to tell me you're going to go broke? Help me, for God's sake, people. But that's what these people say, guys. When it was time to establish the 13th month salary in Brazil, the elite Globo, you can look it up. Brazil is going to go bankrupt. Brazil is going to do this and that, all just empty talk. Did Brazil go bankrupt? It didn't go bankrupt, people. That's not true. The profit is very high. The companies will adapt. After all, people will get to rest. People will go out. They'll end up generating income too. For God's sake, Luciano Hang, a guy who made 18 billion in profit last year, saying that Brazil is going to go bankrupt? You're lying again, just like you lied in 2022, when you said that if Lula won, Brazil would turn into Venezuela. Who's turning into Venezuela now? It's your friend over there in Argentina, Javier Milei. Javier Milei's disapproval rating is reaching 70% in Argentina. A lot of Argentinians are coming to Brazil, especially after the labor reform Javier Milei pushed through. Javier Milei instituted 21st century slavery, where the boss can pay your salary with housing and food. The work hours there increased to 12 hours a day, and that's what Flavio will do if he wins. Andrea, she won't go, she will. Flavio said that he will follow the same standards as his father, Bolsonaro. Did you forget what Bolsonaro did? What did Bolsonaro do for workers during his 4 years in office? Let's remember a few things, and I'll repeat it. Flavio Bolsonaro said he will do and follow the same guidelines as his father. Bolsonaro, during his 4 years in office, basically never raised it in line with inflation. In 30 years of presidential administrations, he was the first not to adjust the minimum wage according to inflation. He didn't even give it according to inflation. From 2020 to 2021, Bolsonaro increased the salary by 6 raises, going from 1,039 to 1,045. He didn't give any adjustment to the minimum wage for workers during his 4 years in office. The same goes for retirees and pensioners. He didn't even update the income tax table. So in 2022, I don't know if you remember, if you were earning a little more than 1.5 minimum wages, if you were earning less than 2 minimum wages, you were paying income tax. Because during the 4 years of Bolsonaro's government, Bolsonaro didn't have the courage or the sensitivity to even update the income tax table. I'll repeat, if you were earning a little less than 2 minimum wages, you were already paying income tax. Bolsonaro presented several provisional measures in the federal Senate trying to end labor rights. 1/3 of vacation pay, FGTS 13th month pay, that so-called green and yellow labor plan. I will never forget that. Because I still remember the session in the federal Senate when he presented that provisional measure. Rodrigo Pacheco's satisfaction when the federal Senate rejected the provisional measure on the green and yellow labor plan because it was so bad, which was meant for the workers. Rodrigo Pacheco was the president and he spoke with satisfaction. Just do a search and you'll see what's on social media. I showed here live Rodrigo Pacheco's satisfaction in saying this provisional measure is rejected and will be filed away. That's how bad the provisional measure was. That's why I say and repeat, if Flavio Bolsonaro